When determining a text's complexity, we've been told to consider three big factors: a text's qualitative measurement, its quantitative measurement, and the overall reader and task. But for this teacher, those three categories are a little vague and ambiguous. I needed something concrete and tangible, something that I could actually use to measure how complex a text was. So I developed a rubric with specific criteria for each of those three big categories. Utilizing the same colors from this commonly recognized text complexity graphic, I created a rubric that breaks down into different categories. The qualitative measurement includes looking at the text's format and layout, structure, language, meaning, and knowledge demands. You look for the quantitative and reader and task considerations on the back side of the rubric. After reading or even rereading multiple times the text in question, you're going to want to use that rubric and look at each row, literally putting an X in the row depending on the level the text falls within. If the layout for your readers is pretty common, pretty typical, then you would mark low level in the complexity. But if the language demands, like the vocabulary, is really unique, difficult, and hard to understand, then you'll mark something in the high or moderately high column. Once you finish all of the yellow criteria, all of those different facets of the qualitative measurement, then turn the rubric over and look at its quantitative measurement. For this single row, you simply need to identify, is this a high-level reading level text or a lower level text? Use your Lexile level or your guided reading levels to simply mark that row. And I've identified 5 small parts to the reader and task considerations. Again, row by row, determine if it's low level in its complexity or high level. We're really asking, how interesting is this topic? How much support are you going to give the students? And are you going to ask them to do anything after reading? Once you have scored every relevant row on the rubric, then you want to utilize general impression and determine where the majority of the X's are falling. Is this text mostly low level in complexity, mostly high level in complexity, or moderately complex? Now that you know the text complexity, let's make sure that you keep note of it. Either keep a copy of the rubric that you wrote on, or somehow make a note in the text itself so you remember its level of complexity. But keep in mind, for different classes, different groups of readers, this same text can score different levels of complexity. So you'll want to reassess the text periodically. You can access complexity rubrics for both literary text and informational text in the article that corresponds with this video on our website.